Why is waiting so unbearable? In our world of instant downloads and overnight shipping, we have been trained to believe that anything worthwhile should happen quickly. The quick fix, the life hack, the 5-step plan to immediate happiness. We have become addicted to the illusion of speed. But what if the most profound transformations in your life, healing, finding purpose, becoming whole, simply refuse to be rushed? What if your impatience is the very thing sabotaging your own growth? What if every time you frantically search for a shortcut, you are trampling the delicate seeds that are trying to grow in the dark? Today, guided by the deep wisdom of Carl Jung, we will challenge the tyranny of the clock. We will learn that the psyche is not a machine to be optimized, but a garden to be tended. And you cannot force a flower to bloom by pulling on its petals. We will reframe the agonizing experience of being stuck, not as a sign of failure, but as a sacred and necessary season of invisible, underground growth. This is not a lesson on how to get what you want faster. It is an invitation to find peace right where you are. An invitation to the lost, sacred art of patience.
Your relationship with time is a story you have been told. A story of urgency, a story of scarcity, a story that whispers and then shouts that you are always running out. This story is governed by a tyrant, a clock that lives on your wrist, on your phone, in the corner of your screen. The ancient Greeks had a name for this kind of time. They called it Kronos. Kronos is the time of the ego. It is linear, measurable, quantitative. It is the time of calendars, of deadlines, of 5-year plans. It is the time that tells you how old you are and how much you have or have not achieved. It is the source of all our modern anxiety and all our modern magic, the world of Amazon Prime, of instant results, of life hacks. And we have come to believe that it is the only clock there is. But there is another clock, an older, deeper, and quieter clock. The Greeks called this one Chyros. Kairos is the time of the soul. It is not linear. It is cyclical. It is not quantitative. It is qualitative. It cannot be measured by a watch. It can only be felt in the heart. Kairos is not what time is it. It is the right time, the opportune moment, the sacred season. A seed does not sprout in Kronos time. It sprouts in Chyros time, when the conditions are right. A great love does not arrive according to your 5-year plan. It arrives in a Kairos moment. And the deepest work of the soul, healing, integration, the entire journey of individuation that Carl Jung mapped for us, happens only in Kairos time. And here is the source of our deepest frustration, the source of our feeling of being stuck. We are trying to measure a Kairos process with a Kronos ruler. We are screaming at the seed to grow faster. We are furious at the winter for being so long. We are judging the slow, sacred, alchemical work of our own soul against the frantic, inhuman pace of a machine. This is not your fault. It is a cultural sickness. But to understand why we are so susceptible to it, we must look at the two parts of ourselves that are most terrified of Kairos time. The first is the wounded inner child. When a child is in pain or feeling a deep discomfort, it has no concept of process. It only knows one thing: I want this to stop now. The impatient part of you that cannot bear to sit with anxiety, that frantically searches for a quick fix for your sadness, that feels like you will die if you don't get an answer right now, is a very young part of you reliving an old terror. The second part is the heroic ego. The ego's identity is built on action, on progress, on its ability to solve problems and make things happen. To the ego, waiting feels like powerlessness. It feels like failure. If it is not actively fixing the problem, it feels useless. And so it pushes, it plans, it strategizes, it forces, and it cannot understand why the soul will not cooperate. I spent years of my own journey in this state of profound frustration. I would do the shadow work. I would face a difficult truth, and a few months later, the same pattern would reemerge, and I would be filled with a self-critical rage. Haven't I dealt with this already? Why am I still here? I was treating my own healing like a project on a timeline. My peace only began when I finally understood a heartbreakingly simple truth. My soul has its own timeline, and my job is not to rush it. My job is to respect it. Pause with me here, just for a breath. I invite you to bring to mind the one thing in your life you are trying to rush the most. Your healing, your career, finding a partner. Feel the frantic pushing energy of Kronos around it, the anxiety, the feeling of being behind. That is the feeling of arguing with a season. That is the pain of trying to pull on the petals of a flower that is not yet ready to bloom. Just acknowledging this, just naming the two clocks, is the beginning of relief. You are not lazy, you are not broken, you are not behind. You are simply a living, organic being trying to exist in a world that worships machines. But why? Why does the soul demand this slowness? What is actually happening in these long, frustrating, and seemingly empty periods of waiting? The answer is not nothing. The answer is everything.
The ego believes that a pause in outer progress is a sign of inner death. The soul knows that the opposite is true. The periods where you feel the most stuck on the surface are often the times of the most profound and necessary growth underneath. This is the great reframing, the alchemy of patience, to move from the terror of stagnation to the wisdom of the fallow season. A farmer does not panic in the winter. They do not scream at the frozen ground to produce a harvest. They know that winter is not an ending. It is an essential part of the cycle. It is the sacred time of rest, of composting the old, of gathering energy in the darkness of the roots in preparation for the inevitable spring. Your psyche is that garden. The times in your life when you feel lost, depressed, without direction, the times you look back on as wasted time, are your soul's winters. They are not a mistake. They are a requirement. Without the winter, there can be no spring. This is the secret that Carl Jung understood through the ancient art of alchemy. The alchemists knew that the first and most crucial stage of turning lead into gold was the nigredo, the blackening, the decomposition, the descent into the dark, chaotic, undifferentiated sludge of the prima materia. You cannot skip this step. You cannot life hack your way through the nigredo. You must be willing to sit in the darkness, in the confusion, in the not knowing, and trust the process. Patience is the courage to trust the winter, to trust the darkness. But this is not a passive, helpless waiting. That is despair. The art of patience is the practice of active waiting. It is the wisdom of the gardener, who in the dead of winter is not idle. They are not trying to force the seeds to grow. They are tending the soil. So what does it mean to tend the soil of your own psyche during a winter season? It means you shift your focus from the outcome to the conditions. While you are waiting for the kairos moment, for the spring to arrive, you actively work with what is in your control. You do all the practices we have spoken of on this journey. You do your shadow work. You write in your journal. You listen to your dreams. You practice somatic awareness. You set your boundaries. This is not a frantic effort to make spring come faster. It is the quiet, devoted work of enriching the soil so that when the seed is finally ready to sprout, the ground is fertile. I once worked with a writer who was in a deep, agonizing period of writer's block. For 2 years, he had not written a single word he was proud of. His ego was in torment. It labeled him a failure, a has-been. He was fighting a brutal war with his own emptiness. His breakthrough did not come from a new writing technique. It came when he finally surrendered. He stopped trying to write the book, and instead, he started to tend his garden. Literally. He spent his days in the dirt, with his hands, silently. He read poetry. He took long, aimless walks. He was not writing. He was tending the soil of his own soul. And then one morning, after months of this active waiting, he woke up, and the first line of his new novel was there, clear as a bell. It had been growing in the dark all along. This is the art of patience. It is also the practice of observing the seasons, of learning to name what season your psyche is in right now without judgment. To be able to say, this is a season of winter, a time of rest and lying fallow. Or, this is a season of fog and confusion, a time for the compass, not the map. Or, this is a season of small, hidden growth. Simply accepting the season stops the war against it. It allows you to finally cooperate with the natural rhythm of your own becoming. Pause here with me. Think of that area in your life where you feel stuck, the place you are most impatient. Instead of seeing it as a problem to be solved, what if you saw it as a season to be inhabited? What season would you call it? Winter? Fog? A long, slow dawn? Just giving it a new name, a name of nature, not of failure. Can you feel the subtle shift in your body? The small release? That is the beginning of patience. It is the surrender of the ego's arrogant belief that it is in control, and the humble acceptance that you are part of a much larger, wiser, and more mysterious process. You are not the grower, you are the garden, and your only task is to trust the seasons of your own soul.
The great secret of the spiritual path is that the way you walk the path is the destination itself. Patience is not the painful waiting period before you get to peace. The practice of patience is the peace. Every time you choose to trust the process over the outcome, you are not just waiting for peace, you are embodying it. And the ultimate fruit of this embodiment, the most beautiful and resilient flower that grows from the soil of patience, is trust. Not a blind faith, not a passive hope that things will turn out the way your ego wants, but a deep, embodied, and unshakable trust in the wisdom of your own soul, in the intelligence of the life process, and in the rightness of your own unique, unrepeatable timeline. This trust is the final antidote to the anxiety and frantic striving of the modern world. It is the anchor that holds you steady, not just in the calm waters, but in the heart of the storm. It is the quiet, inner knowing that even if you cannot see the path ahead, you are still on the path. I once knew a master potter, an old woman who had spent 70 years with her hands in the clay. I watched her one day as she centered a large piece of clay on her wheel. It was wobbling, it was not cooperating. My own impatient ego wanted her to force it, to dominate it into submission. But she did not. She simply kept her hands steady, her presence calm, applying a gentle, constant, and loving pressure. She was not fighting the clay, she was listening to it, dancing with it. And then, after what felt like an eternity to me, it happened. The clay found its center, a kairos moment. And from that centered stillness, she began to shape the most beautiful vessel I had ever seen. Later, I asked her the secret. She smiled and said something I have never forgotten. "The clay has its own mind," she said. "My job is not to force it. My job is to love it until it trusts me enough to reveal its own true form." Your soul is that clay, and your patient, loving, and trusting presence is the hands of the master. The final practice in the art of patience is learning to follow the breadcrumbs. Even in the longest winter, even in the deepest fog, the self does not abandon you. It leaves you small clues, a synchronicity, a dream image, a sudden intuitive hit, a quiet nudge to take one small next step. The impatient ego dismisses these. It wants the whole map. It wants the 5-year plan. The patient soul knows that the journey is revealed one step at a time, and it has the courage to take that one step without needing to see the entire staircase. This is the heart of trust. Pause here. One last time. Bring to mind that impatient part of you, the part that wants to know the ending of the story, now. Gently, with compassion, I invite you to say to that part, "It's okay not to know. We only need to know the next right step, and we will trust that the step after that will be revealed in its own time." Feel the release in your body, the freedom of letting go of the need to be the master strategist of your own life, and simply becoming a faithful traveler. This is the peace that awaits you on the other side of your own hurry. A life lived not in the frantic ticking of the Kronos clock, but in the spacious, sacred rhythm of Chyros. You are not behind. You are not stuck. You are a seed growing in the dark. You are clay finding its center. You are a soul unfolding exactly and perfectly on time.
We have stood today between the two great clocks of existence. The frantic, demanding clock of the ego, Kronos, and the quiet, cyclical, and mysterious clock of the soul, Chyros. We have learned that our deepest frustration comes from judging one clock by the standards of the other. And we have reframed the painful seasons of winter in our lives, not as periods of stagnation, but as times of sacred underground growth. This is the heart of the Jungian journey, to find meaning not just in the light, but to trust the profound work that is happening in the dark. The art of patience is not a passive waiting for your life to begin. It is the active, courageous, and deeply loving practice of tending to the soil of your own soul and trusting in the seasons. You are not lazy. You are not behind. You are a garden, and you cannot be rushed. The peace you are searching for will not be found at the end of the road. It will be found in the way you learn to walk it, with less pushing and more presence, with less frantic planning and more faithful listening, with less of the ego's arrogance and more of the soul's quiet, humble trust. So I invite you now to a final, quiet practice, a small ceremony to honor the gardener that lives within you. This week, I invite you to choose just one thing in your life that you are impatiently trying to fix or to solve. A feeling, a situation, a goal. And just for a few minutes each day, I invite you to formally release it. To say to yourself, for this moment, I will not try to solve this. I will not force this. I will simply trust the process. Notice how it feels to put down the heavy burden of making it happen. Notice the peace that is already there when you stop fighting. In the comments below, I invite you to share one thing you are learning to be patient with. Let's honor the slow, sacred work together. To be able to sit patiently in the discomfort of not knowing, in the heat of the alchemical vessel, requires a strong inner foundation, a container. In our next video, we will explore how to build this resilience from the inside out by learning the crucial skill of creating a powerful inner container for your emotions. But for now, be gentle with yourself. Trust the winter. The spring is inevitable.